Welcome back. We're about to begin our first discussion item, which is the Stop and Shop sound attenuation fence, and that will be presented to us. This is an issue that came to the fore, well, it's been 7 years, Jeff, that this issue's been going on, and there was some noise code violations. We have been working with all the entities. We had a sound study done, and we believe that we've come to a conclusion to help alleviate some of the sound, and I will
Correct.
turn that over to you.
Yeah, so as you stated, obviously I don't have to, fill the board in on the noise complaints and the sound studies that were conducted. Where we're at this point in the application process, this application was reviewed by the planning board for a site plan application at its meeting on September 19th. The issue at hand now specifically, which the town board can have some help in alleviating, deals with the buffer along the southern property boundary between Stop and Shop and Glenwood Village. The town code specifically requires when a buffer zone is required to protect a residential property, a 6-foot high chain link fence with stockade attached shall be required. Now what the applicant is proposing is a 15-foot tall chain link fence with some sound attenuating material attached to it in order to reduce the noise levels for the neighboring residents. There is a section in town code 301-236C1 which gives the town board the authority to waive or otherwise amend the requirements of that 6-foot chain link fence. So in order to kind of, as trying to be sensitive to the residents, knowing they've been dealing with this issue for a long time, anything to keep it out of, zoning board of appeals, which would add another 6 weeks to it. It's within the town board's power to specifically amend the requirements for that 6-foot fence, which would allow for the construction of the 15-foot fence. They are proposing landscaping. They would have to eliminate the existing landscaping, and they're proposing to plant 34 Leland cypresses with an approximate height of 10 to 12 feet, which will eventually grow to be a significant height. I did speak to Mr. Stark. He did submit letters from the owners of the nearest residential properties stating that they are in support of this application, they are in support of the fence. It's really a quality of life issue for them. So what we have here is a resolution at the next meeting for the town board to amend those conditions to specifically allow the installation of the 15-foot
But we're going with a
fence.
greater than what code is, right?
Correct, yeah.
I could see if we're going with a smaller fence, it's
Yeah.
probably more of an issue than a bigger fence.
I agree with you, Jim. The code should probably be amended to say at least 6 feet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think changing the code to amend that, I'm not sure a 15-foot fence would be appropriate in every situation.
Well,
I
you're not
think-
gonna see
I think
12-foot
these-
trees
I think
right
these
there.
are specific circumstances that warrant the town board, in this case, amending the conditions. As far as, amending the code going forward, we can address
That's a
that in
pretty
code
big-
revision, but.
That's a tall fence, man.
It is a tall fence. Again, they will be planting Leland cypress at a height of about 10 to 12 feet. When these things grow, they'll probably be 20, 30 feet tall. So it will effectively obscure the fence once these things take
Sure.
hold.
And there's been a lot of conversation back and forth between Stop and Shop and the town and our sound experts that we hired to take a look at this, to be able to mitigate it. And I think that, they've come up with a
Well, let's try it.
buffer that we all believe will be successful in reducing the complaints. They've done several things. They've done this buffer as well as over by the loading docks. They're adding some noise reduction
some
techniques over there also.
Yeah, they're gonna be putting the fencing and the sound attenuating material in front of the loading docks, and they're also gonna be affixing some material to the wall to help prevent sound reverberating and amplifying. Yeah, as I said, at the last planning board meeting, Mr. Stark and Mr. Petroselli were both present. It seems like both parties are really working diligently to kind of move this application forward, in the interest of the residents, so.
How's Petroselli involved?
He's
He's
the
a contractor.
For Stop and Shop.
Contractor.
Oh, you do, okay, I realize you built.
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Good.
All right, is any objection from anybody?
No, it sounds
No.
like a good
I
plan.
can't
Alright.
hear you, that's, I guess it's working.
The only thing the resolution just needs, instead of waive in the title, will be amend. So it's consistent with the resolved.
All right.
All right, very good, thank you guys.
Yeah, the next agenda meeting, the applicant for 331 is running a little bit late, so. if you
Okay,
wanna
so,
continue with the agenda, we'll get the
If
ball.
Dave is, John is, the chief here?
I'll ask the chief, yeah, I
Okay.
didn't realize that this was gonna go that quickly.
Okay,
I'll ask the chief to come over, I don't know if you guys wanna start with resolution.
yeah, we could do that.
Like, I mean, I read that all in the paper, so the paper had a pretty story on that sound buffer.
So we'll comment, we'll wait and comment.
Yeah, we'll just go to, just in the interest of time, we will start with resolutions,
Oh,
and we
let's
can
go.
pause the resolutions when, the everybody for the next item comes through. So the first one is the town hall, boiler budget adoption. This is for, town hall, they do not think it will make it through the winter.
Not
This is-
working now, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so, that is for that. Next is authorize town to provide funding assistance in 2020 and 2021 for the Riverhead Community Awareness, program. Next is authorizes the Justice Court to make a grant application through, JCAP program for the purchase of, office furnishing. Next is, authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with County of Suffolk Office for the Aging, that's, AAA Transportation Program. Next is authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with Coastal Land Enterprises LLC for utilization of town police personnel and vehicles non-pro-tunc. This is a police, assistant upon portions of Middle Road, Calverton pavement line marking in front of the Tractor Supply.
It's Middle Country Road, by the way.
Corporate, what did I say?
Middle Road.
Oh, Middle Country Road, sorry. Next is authorizes execution of a memorandum of understanding with Suffolk County District Attorney and law enforcement agencies and participate in the East End Drug Task Force.
Yeah, man, that's a great organization.
Just wanted to ask the chief something about the contract. Next is authorizes the supervisor to execute an agreement with County of Suffolk, acting through its duly constituted youth bureau.
That's for, yep, use the foot.
They had their, opening, introductory meeting the other day. It was nice to see so many kids interested. Jim, you were there for that?
Yeah, yep, I haven't missed one yet. Great organization. Hold on.
Is everybody here for the next?
I'm having so much fun with the resolutions, let's not stop now.
No, I know, I'm just trying to get to the next resolution.
At least go to,
The
at
county contract is,
least go to 10, that way you know where you left off.
I think we have the special permit first, so we're just waiting for the applicant. You don't have the applicant, not yet, right? Next is approve special permit and administrative site plan, for, Petroselli, Ostrander Howell House, 420 East Main Street and 117 Ostrander Avenue, Riverhead, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map 600-129-3-12 and 600-129-3-14.
I do have a change for you on that one. We needed to add the secret citation on it, so I just have an amended version
you.
for you.
All right, we'll let you interrupt.
So this is, okay.
Copies for the press if they want. The only thing we made a change to this is that we needed a secret citation, that we are issuing a negative declaration on it.
Okay, good, so it's complete now, thank you.
Yep.
I did have some questions
Oh, yeah, right.
on this, just on, because, just some clarity, because I know we had talked about this, and the DOT did not approve the curb cut for which they're requesting a driveway. So I'm not sure why we have the driveway in there without a curb cut.
Curb cut's already there.
No, DOT had told them to remove it as part of the.
Oh, yeah.
It said all changes required, and that the existing driveway on East Main Street will be removed and replaced with grass.
That's from the DOT?
That's from DOT.
Yeah.
Because DOT has to allow every single property owner that has road frontage on a state road to have at least one curb cut. So I can't imagine that they would mandate that you
No.
couldn't have a curb cut on the state road.
No, most of the businesses on Main Street don't have curb cuts.
Well,
They're not permitted to have curb cuts.
they don't have parking, but if they wanted curb cuts and they wanted to create an alleyway or a parking, yes, they do, Laura. I've been building for 25 years, and if you have frontage on a state road and you have room for a curb cut, they have to let you have a curb cut, so.
If I could, if just
yes,
on
thank
condition number 17, if I could just read that to you, and the reason why we worded it the way we did. On condition number 17, we have the condition that says, if allowed by DOT, the driveway on East Main Street shall only be used for property maintenance purposes and not for delivery pickups or for customer patron use. I think the one reason why I think it's important to allow the curb cut, if DOT allows it, to have for maintenance purposes, you don't want the maintenance trucks and the workers commingling in with the patrons using that hotel and that facility. And two, the maintenance trucks would take up the parking spaces in the back, that are needed for the patrons, so,
But Jeff, the maintenance truck cannot get past the building. It's only like
Understood.
8 feet 6, it's not a full road
I
past the
understand.
building, and they would have to back up onto the walkable sidewalk.
and so as
I mean-
I was taught by my dad, always keep your options open, so we left the option there that if DOT approves it, they wouldn't have to come back again, but if the town board strikes that out, if they get DOT approval, they could always come back and amend it, so you have the two
Yeah, I
sides.
think, you know, DOT at this time is not allowing the curb cut, so I think if they are allowed the curb cut, they should come back and then amend it at that point.
So the question is.
I disagree. I think we should allow them to have the curb cut.
Right.
It's there, let
No,
them
and
do
we-
it to
we
state
have no-
specs.
we do not dictate the curb cut. DOT dictates the curb cut.
Okay, so then
DOT at this point has told them they need to remove the curb cut, that's my point. So why are we approving a driveway to nowhere?
Because the DOT has to allow them a curb cut on a state road,
I,
if they have
Jeff,
frontage on a
does,
state
on,
road.
on a main road, it's not state law that they have to have a curb cut on a downtown thoroughfare.
I don't know.
And I believe in our code, it even recommends no curb cuts on
Yeah, there's a.
development.
It's guideline, I don't know what the DOT laws are on that,
Could you find out?
yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's important to point out that this isn't your typical commercial block building. This is a residence that's been converted. So, just the appearance of a residence and keeping it, you know, the 780,000, restore it, that driveway would help actually make it even look more like a home.
But it's just a driveway to nowhere. I think it's
Well,
good,
really
if
not.
there's
It-
no
it's-
curb
it's-
cut.
It will be a driveway, it'll look like a driveway, and it's not gonna be utilized except for the occasional maintenance guy gotta come in
But
to
this
work.
is what I'm saying, there's no way.
I love it, I
But-
think it
no,
should
no,
stay.
no, Jim, what I'm
We
saying,
should
there's.
petition the
but-
DOT
but-
to go ahead and approve it, and that's
But
that.
that's what I'm saying, if the DOT approves the curb cut,
We should insist that they do.
okay,
If the DOT doesn't approve the curb cut, then it's not gonna stay there. So why do it
Well,
in reverse order?
I'm,
Let-
I'm saying the DOT has already said remove the curb cut.
Okay,
So
I'm
it's
okay
not-
to approve it the way it is, and good luck to them in trying to get the DOT to
All right,
allow
that's
them to have
fine.
the
You know
curb
what, I
cut.
wanna wait, Jeff, you're gonna get some information back to us, let's discuss this again.
Is the DOT gonna come and redo all the sidewalks and curbing along there?
If they get
Well,
a
he's
DOT
gonna have
permit,
to
he'd
do it.
have to do it.
And I thought
Because
that was the
ours is
recommendation.
a shame, going into our
Jeff,
parking lot, by the way.
I thought that was the original recommendation, is that he had to build the curb cut to standards and he had to replace the sidewalk.
'Cause originally
Wasn't
he-
that the original recommendation from DOT?
Yes,
So then where did this subsequent recommendation saying, no, you're not gonna have a DOT curb cut
I
come from?
haven't seen it, but I know that.
I haven't seen it either, I'm wondering if it's
Okay.
a special request.
I will get a copy.
It's not a special request, that is what Karen presented when she was here, that they were not allowed the
No,
curb cut.
I saw the original DOT comments, and the original DOT comments were that it had to be built to state specs, and that they had to replace the sidewalk. And at the time, Mr. Petroselli
that?
was objecting to that. That was the original comments, and that was in the original report that came out of planning staff.
That's what I checked with Karen, because she said that it was not approved with the
Okay,
curb
well, you
cuts.
should probably check with the planning director, because the comments come back to him, and that's the chain of command. So I saw the planning
So
comments
Jeff, would you
when they
supply
originally came
that
Yeah,
out.
back
I'll
with
get
us?
copies of all the communications between DOT and the town, and
Okay.
I'll email those to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, because it might have been the recommendation of the town,
Well,
but
I
that
mean, I
is
don't-
not
it
the
was a
res-
DOT.
I
response.
certainly don't think it's worth disagreeing over, let's find out,
Yeah.
let's get the facts
Yep,
before
let's do that.
we get into this.
Yep.
All
Get
And
into the
I
weeds
would
with
like
it.
all of the letters from the DOT, including the first one that said that
Absolutely.
they have to build it to standards and they have to replace the sidewalk.
That would be helpful to see that, yes. All right, so, do we have everybody here for the downtown code and? Yep.
Except for the chief, but-
All right, Chief, do you wanna go first
He's
with
here.
traffic update? So, okay, so why don't we,
I don't think he was gonna be
Yeah.
able to make it, Jeff is here.
I'm
Well,
here on
why
his
don't we
behalf.
bring the chief
Just
up
get Karen to look
Yep.
and see if. there's
So
anything
just to
else.
stay, let's bring the chief up first so that we can stay in order while we wait for the second item. We can do the traffic update and then we will move on to downtown code and policy updates.
Yay, so exciting.
Howdy.
So we got the number.
Favorite fall
Good morning.
topic?
Traffic,
Traffic,
daily topic.
yes. Yeah, we had the,
Luncheon
they had
topic.
the, forum yesterday on traffic on the North Fork, so,
Yeah, I wish I would've known about that. I would've liked to have attended that.
That was done
Yeah,
by
there was there was too much traffic and
News
everything.
Review, I
Yeah.
think, handled it.
It was in the paper.
yeah.
I don't read the paper all the time.
So, would you like to give us a traffic update?
We still have traffic.
Okay.
It hasn't disappeared, although this past weekend, I think it moved pretty well, so we're out in full force. On some media outlet, there was comments from the public, like 87 comments. The vast majority of them were positive as far as the traffic was concerned. There was a few disgruntled people, but. I
And
think
there was
that's
some
to be expected.
misinformation going out. I saw on social media that there was a thought that you were shutting down traffic on Sound Avenue and looking at licenses to
Yeah, I heard
make
that.
sure
You
it
were looking at
was,
licenses?
No.
that
No.
just goes,
Yeah, I
misinformation
did
gets out
receive
there and
my
everybody.
first complaint today about local residents on Sound Shore Road. They were concerned that they weren't gonna be allowed on Sound Shore Road.
They're not.
No, I told them that they would be allowed, so, we're just, if you're not a local resident, you're not allowed up there, so.
And I think one of the other things that you were able to accomplish during the week is that one of the questions was over at Harb's Farm, that they had the additional parking area, and being able to connect the two there, and
Yes.
that there was a resolution to that.
On their site, they connected two in the back, so they're not on Sound Avenue trying to get the cars jockeyed around. So we now have one entrance in and one exit out, so that works to everyone's benefit.
Very good.
Were there certain measures that you felt were more helpful than others, or?
Yeah, I think
Just a
Really
little,
were
just a little louder.
successful.
Overriding the, some of the traffic control devices, especially stop signs, I think that's beneficial. The no parking in front of the biscuit company, I think is beneficial. Having the proper staff up at Harb's Farm has helped out greatly, so. We'll be out there again full force this weekend, supervisor plus at least 8 or 9 officers, so.
And I think you were looking to hire a couple more for,
Yes, it was from our training that the councilwoman set up with the union. I don't know the union number, but we got 3 TCOs or TCSs that want to work for Riverhead, so that's a good thing.
to move additional
Yes.
staff. So very good.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
we're doing,
Well, it
we're
looked
doing
like
well.
traffic was moving along on Sound
Yeah,
Avenue.
no, there was traffic, but it was moving, so
It
that's,
wasn't,
that's a good
I
thing.
didn't, and it was a busy weekend, so I was
Right.
concerned.
Yeah, you're not gonna stop.
According to Mr. Harbs, he said that the next 3 weekends should about do it. He says those are the busiest of times, so.
And how was Peconic Bay Boulevard? Because I thought I heard that there was heavier traffic there.
I haven't
It
heard
was-
any.
It was a steady flow,
Right.
a steady flow of traffic,
moving.
but moving. It was certainly, I think that's one of the keys, is that it continued to move. You weren't necessarily
Right,
at those
dead
dead
stop, right,
stops.
yeah, no.
And
That's
58,
what I
which
heard,
usually
too.
backs all the way up onto 58, it was still flowing on 58, which was good.
Yeah. So there should be a busy weekend. We have the Jewish holidays this weekend, with
Oy.
you know, in conjunction with the weekend. Columbus Day weekend will be a busy weekend.
All right, very good. Keep
We'll
up
get
the
there.
good
We'll
work.
keep working
All right, I
on
think
it.
Am I
you
staying?
are still here.
And I
Yeah,
have,
stay, stick around.
1298 coming to the October
Okay.
2nd town board meeting at 2 o'clock, so I can present them with a certificate of appreciation from the town board, so.
Who's coming?
Local 1298, they're the
Oh, did the
group that
training.
came in to train
Oh.
the traffic control officers
Alrighty
and
then.
specialists.
Did you just notify John so we can put it on the agenda if you like?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, next we'll move on to downtown code and policing updates, so could everyone come up and join us?
You could have stayed, Jeff. I know.
Do we have enough chairs?
You can sit next to me, 'cause
Hello, good morning, everybody.
I parked ladder, that way.
I know that it's been a topic of concern in the community recently about overcrowded housing. We have been meeting, I can't remember, we started in January or so, meeting to coordinate efforts to address these issues. So I think that because it is such a topic in the community at this time, I feel that it's appropriate that we kind of just give an update of what has been going on, what you've been able to accomplish, and also some of the basics of how you can address overcrowded housing. I know we do have another resolution that we're putting forward to just allow some more ability to go after the landlords that are renting these overcrowded housing, but I will let you guys first give an update. Would you like to start, or Eric, would you like to start?
In terms of an update?
Yeah, I mean, I think previously, we've been working to have not only the police department, and we have our sector patrols out there. We have been coordinating efforts between the police department and code enforcement to identify overcrowded housing, and also to provide feedback to code enforcement on the issues of overcrowded housing, and to do any sort of legwork that needs to be enhanced, other than when the code enforcement is here, so.
Yeah,
If I could just jump in front of Eric on one
Sure.
point, because I mean, I know that there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about this, but, you know, we've talked about it from a Supreme Court action, we talked about it from a Justice Court perspective. And Rich was good enough to take a look at, you know, through our IPS system where we are with the Justice Court proceedings, and without getting into specific overcrowding vis-à-vis code enforcement, the amount of tickets that have been issued in the Justice Court have doubled this year. And that's, you know, obviously an indication that there's been stepped up enforcement and more that's happening at the Justice Court level, which we're seeing the court backing up a little bit. And I know that when Eric is over there, he's over there for an extended period of time because there is a greater volume of cases that are going on. So I wanted to point that out.
Is that for not having rental permits, or is that for
It's
overcrowded
across-
houses?
It's everything.
Because
It's everything.
I did get the illegal rental apartments, I did get that list, and I also got the other list, that you had sent me,
The overcrowded housing.
the overcrowded housing, and I don't know that those cases are all in justice court. I think that the majority of the cases that are in rental court are for landlords not having rental permits.
Well, that's not entirely true. We have multiple cases in justice court. Some of
For
those,
overcrowding?
some of those are overcrowded, some of those are no rental permits.
Can you get me the number?
Bob has the reports, right?
You know, I got them, I'll provide them
you
to you, I'll
wanna-
scan them in and I'll shoot them to you.
Yeah.
Great.
There were approximately 480 tickets from January to date that were issued this year.
480.
484, what were the tickets?
Multiple things.
So can you break this
So-
down
So
for
when you-
us,
Not
please?
just overcrowding, just multiple different code sections were written.
Great, I'd like to see those broken down,
And
please.
then last year, we had approximately 231.
Well, the IPS
So-
system has helped significantly with that, tracking them
Absolutely.
too.
So can you just, I think some of the confusion that comes in with the public, if you have a single-family resident, who can occupy a single-family resident? It's dictated by bedrooms?
Square footage of
Occupants are
bedrooms.
dictated by bedrooms and bedroom sizes.
Mhm.
So certain square footage is the requirement, so you need at least 70 square feet to be a bedroom, and then 50 additional square feet per occupant. That's the general rule of thumb.
So it's
So
not necessarily
typically-
related people?
No. In fact, you can't dictate whether somebody's related or unrelated. It doesn't constitute the definition of a family.
Well, a single-family house is supposed to be for a single family, but it's been my understanding in sitting with code enforcement prior to 2018, that it's very difficult to prove who is a family that's living in the house. If you have 6 adults and you have 10 children, it's very difficult to prove whether or not those 6 adults are actually family. And because of the court case in Huntington that dictated and basically set the definition for what a family was, that it's very difficult for us not only to get access to the house to determine who these people are that are living there and whether or not they're family, but it's also very difficult to determine what the square footage is of the bedrooms and how many people are actually staying in those bedrooms. And that's been our hurdle with code enforcement,
Well,
prior to 2018. So I don't know what you've done since then when it comes to this type of code enforcement, but
So, Rich, let me just, so I can,
Um,
so the public can have a better understanding.
Sure.
In their own mind. You're saying that the number of residents or number of people allowed in a residence are dictated by the number of bedrooms?
The square
And that's
footage,
Size.
the size of the bedrooms.
The size of bedroom, and
Yep.
approximately 100 square feet per person, is that what it is? So if you have a.
50.
So if you have a 100 square foot room, you could have 2 people in that room, and no more.
And that is not determined by the town?
No,
No,
I know
it's-
that, but,
It's determined by the square
but
footage
you have
of
a
the
3-bedroom house that we all know that the lumberyard comes and all of a sudden there's 6 bedrooms in the basement, I mean, we know that.
But that's determined by the state regulations that determine how many people can be in a house. That's, you know, you're saying since 2018. So when,
Well, that's the question of the family definition,
Right.
which actually goes
Yeah.
back to the sixties. There
I'm
was a
talking
case
about,
So
that,
I
that's-
haven't been,
you know,
I
That's what I'm
haven't been
saying.
aware of really what code enforcement has been done and what you've been working on with them since January of 2018. That's what I'm saying. But before that, this is the information that I had been given by our counsel to the Justice Court and by our code enforcement officer when we used to have code enforcement meetings. So that's what
I
was
don't
discussed.
understand your point about 2018.
It-
Can you
it's-
clarify that?
That I haven't been at any meetings since January of 2018 for code enforcement, as liaison to code enforcement, I thought I made that clear the other night.
well, Jody, you are always welcome to attend the meetings,
If I
and-
don't know when they are, and they are at various times as scheduled by your office, then how am I supposed
Hold
to
on
be
a
at those
second,
meetings?
I wanna speak on this. You've been invited numerous times, in fact, last week, I was in the same email as you. You were invited, and I came to the meeting, and I said, listen, I said to the front office, Jody should be in this meeting. She's the code enforcement liaison. If she shows up, please step in, I'll leave.
Okay, so
But
I got an
You didn't
email.
show up,
Okay.
so, I mean, you have to
So-
show up for the meetings.
Okay,
That's all
Catherine,
I'm gonna say.
that's the first time since January of 2018, and I did get an email saying that it was this Friday, and then I got an email last Friday morning saying it was changed to last Friday, and I have those emails if you'd like to see them.
But Jody, you're
My only
a
question is,
council
do all
member
these
and
people
can
have
ask
to be here for this discussion?
Yes, they're
Yeah,
all working
yeah.
on it.
So
and-
yes,
all
this
these
is,
people.
all these teams, they meet every single week, and we go over these
No, I
items.
know that, but they have
So-
to be here for this discussion?
No, they don't, but this is, you know, that, we have the meetings, Jody, you have a office assistant there that can also call my office and say, you know, I'm available at this time for a meeting, I'd like to schedule a meeting. So I'll just leave that at that, because that is not the discussion
no.
at hand here.
Just
So-
as.
No, but I'm certainly, because I like to work together, I'm certainly willing to, you know, whatever plan you have for code enforcement, I'd like to see it,
Okay, so just
that'd be
as
great.
when there are sewer meetings and there are water meetings, you invite the liaison to attend those meetings? I
Not-
would like
no,
you to invite me
I don't.
when you do have the
Jody,
meetings.
you have an open invitation, and you can certainly come anytime you like, we have the meetings. It's, you know, we invited you, I didn't realize that you felt that you weren't included in the meetings. I spoke to you last week about it and made sure that you had an invitation this week, and you didn't come to the meeting, so,
No,
but we'll
because it was
continue.
scheduled for
Well,
this Friday coming,
I will
not last Friday.
I'd like to have a meeting
Well,
now.
we will continue to let you know when the meetings are, if you can attend.
I'm gonna print them out right now.
So, go ahead, if you could, just explain what's been going on.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, yeah.
So Jimmy was asking how many.
Yeah, I don't
Yes.
remember.
How
What
we
did I ask,
determine
please refresh?
Yes.
How many people can
Yes.
occupy a house, and it's all based off of the square footage of the bedrooms and common areas in the house. In other words, you typically, you have a house.
1,500
with-
square foot house.
Right, you have a 1,500 square foot house, you might have a 3-bedroom house. One of those rooms is gonna be a master bedroom, it's gonna be a little bigger than the other 2 rooms. Generally speaking, you'll have a 10 by 12 room, which can handle 2 people. And then you might have 2 of those rooms, and you might have a room that's 200 square feet, and that can handle 4 people. So, that's what we,
And I
that's what
think,
we have to deal with.
the
when
real
we're going
issue
through the house.
is, I mean, I think it's easy to detect, I shouldn't say easy, but I mean, it's obvious to detect if you look at the amount of garbage that might put out, or the number of cars in the yard. It's obvious to show where there might be multiple people living in a residence. I think the issue is, how do you gain access? Is that part of the problem?
Well, we've increased our, patrols for overcrowded housing type complaints, where we have 2 officers assigned on Thursdays and Fridays, doubled up and getting into a lot of these houses without warrants. We're getting them to sign consents and getting inside.
That's a great thing.
Can you just explain the difference between, so if you have a house that you suspect is overcrowded, you have no ability to just, on that premise, or a complaint to enter the house, is that correct?
Correct.
So either they have to allow you into the house, or if they're not allowing to your house, what is your avenue at that point?
Well, at that point, then we might pursue some sort of avenue to try to get a warrant to get in if we think it's bad enough, where it constitutes that, so. But we've been getting into a lot of these houses.
It's more of a safety issue than anything else, really. I mean, it's-
Well, you guys have been working hard, and I think that it would be great at some point if we can add, you know, we need to add personnel to the code enforcement department. But I am pleased that we are going after the landlords. I'm pleased that you are putting something forward, because it's really disturbing, some of the conditions that people are living in, because these landlords seem to be just, you know, really don't care. And some of these conditions I've looked at too, you know, you can tell the children are there, and it's upsetting. and dangerous.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of occupancy of accessory garages, basements, even sheds, tool sheds.
And they're charging these residents an exorbitant amount of
Even our
money,
backyard,
for this. So, I mean, it's really an exploitation by the landlords when you're overcrowding a house and then charging fees. I mean, you went into one house recently that they were getting almost $6,500 for a house that was really falling apart. Have reached out to the
And
D.
we were just
yeah.
at one yesterday, it was very similar, so.
Yeah. So the question is, and I know that this is a challenge that we've been trying to figure out, is to how to go after the landlords themselves that are renting these houses out. Because we know that we have several players in town that have multiple houses. You know, and this has been a challenge that we have been struggling with for, well, even for several months right now, to try and come up with an avenue that we can go after somebody who has multiple violations in multiple houses, and how to go after them as a whole, as opposed to one house at a time, which is what we're doing, and it's difficult for the resources to be able to do that. And, you know, you go into a house, they have violations, you bring them to court, and then, you know, 1 year later, it's very profitable for them to continue to rent the houses in the way they were previously, and they go back and we start from square one again. So, you know, I think that is the challenge. That's one of the resolutions that I have forward, that if you go in and there is an overcrowded houses, that you can, and on first time, give a $10,000 fine, and every day that it continues, you can continue with the $10,000 fine. So I think it has to become unprofitable to run the houses that are overcrowded.
Well, I'm glad you brought up bad players. I mean, certainly we have good landlords in Riverhead, but it's been a problem as long as I can remember, that we've had a lot of bad landlords that are taking advantage of people and breaking rules. And even, I mean, even with the whole downtown thing, you know, we've got landlords that are really not maintaining their buildings. So it's just an overall problem, and I think it's the right thing to go after the landlords here.
Yeah, and it's progressively gotten a lot worse in my 19 years, 20 years here. So,
Yeah.
you know,
But you guys have been doing a very good job. I think you guys, I mean, you've doubled the amount of violations. You've been, you know, you have your eyes and ears out. You know, I talked to Rich and Bob with the budget for this time about code enforcement, increasing code enforcement. I know that there's both in-house documentation and things that need to follow through to be able to bring these cases forward, and, you know, I've heard you on both of those issues, and, you know, when I present my budget, we'll hopefully be able to address some of those.
I think we need to add
Issues.
cars also, because I noticed that there are 2 code enforcement officers that are driving around together every single day, and to me, that's not the best use of their time.
And I have that in the budget also. We've talked about that. The cars have come to my attention this year.
Yep.
And also with adding an additional code enforcement officer, we realized we needed another car, so.
Maybe another 2
that's-
cars, so
that's-
that they each have one.
That would be included in the budget. We will have
Great.
that
Very
update.
good.
Well, and certainly with what's going on in the school district currently, you know, it's really, you know, a lot of talk in the community, and everybody's upset. You know, as a former teacher, I've been hearing from parents who've been calling me and concerned about the school district. You know, and people are, and I understand where they're coming from. I fought very hard for more state aid for Riverhead School District for a long time and advocated for smaller class size, so that's a concern right now, that the schools are overcrowded. And there's just a lot happening. I mean, let's face it, Long Island is, you know, there are not very many affordable places to live in on Long Island anymore, because we're an aesthetically beautiful area, and that's what happens. But, and we do have affordable housing here. So we're overcrowded. But as far as the school district and the town, some people have, I noticed that some people have been, you know, arguing between the school district and the town, and for me, that's just totally inappropriate. I don't wanna see that. I think that the town and the school district should be working side by side. We have our things to work on, which we're discussing today. The school district has their things to work on, but we should be working side by side and supporting one another. And I think any time that with the school district or the town are throwing barbs at each other, it really hurts our entire community.
Just don't read it.
So I ask, well, we've had people from the town that have gone and
always the
spoken
town's
up, and
fault.
we've had people from the school
Always.
district, and that's gotta stop, because we can't solve problems unless we're all working on it together.
So I did attend the first school district meeting, and the request was made by the school board members and by the superintendent to send your questions that you have by email, so that, you know, people aren't getting so upset attending these meetings. So I did that, and I also scheduled a meeting with the superintendent to discuss my concerns with the school district, because I think that it's very important for the school district to relate to the town when there are multiple families with multiple children registered at the same address. And if they are not family, then that should be enough information for us to go to the judge and get a warrant so that we can go in and see what's happening inside the house. And then we can go and address the issue. So I think it's very important that we share information and that the school district give us information as to multiple families living in houses. And if it's not zoned multifamily, then there should be one family in the dwelling.
And Bob, I'm gonna
Well-
have you address that again,
Yeah, I
because
don't
that
know
is, it's
legally.
set by the state. Or-
There's decisions that go back, I believe the first one was Brown, which was in 1965, which said that a family is no longer a traditional family unit. It can be a number of different unrelated people living together in one house, provided they are living as a family unit.
And what
And those-
defines that?
It's a communal one.
It's really,
Yeah.
you know, the way the house is set up, how they're residing, is it set up as a single family as opposed to broken up into separate units. We define a unit. I mean, you know, there's gotta be some separation between one part of the house from another, so that there's separate entrances, separate egress, and then they become a multi-unit residence or a
Yeah,
multi-family house.
They're all using the same kitchen.
So
same
that's
facilities.
sort of what is where we are, and there's cases that have been decided at the federal level, which say you can't just say one family, they have to be all related, and that's where the inquiry begins and ends. So
But it
that's-
also seems like there would be privacy issues too. I don't know that the school district can release that information publicly, I don't know.
I
I'm
was
not
told
sure
if they
about
foil
I'm not
it,
sure
they
about the
can.
privacy issue, but, you know, I know there's some discussion about, you know, maybe there's more that can be done to verify where they reside. And I understand other school districts, and without getting into names and, you know, too far along, who have dealt with this, who've had this issue, and they've taken some efforts. And again, it's a matter of communication between the town and the school
Working
districts.
together.
Exactly.
Well, because the school district, you know, I don't think they can just simply say, we educate and that's it. That's where their job begins and ends. They probably have some obligation to determine whether somebody actually lives in the town of Riverhead, whether it be the Flanders side or the Riverhead side. I mean, if someone is being, you know, driven in every day from outside of the Riverhead School District and dropped off at a location and then attending the Riverhead School District, that's not right. If that's happening. I'm not saying it is, but there's gotta be some verification or some process that's being done to verify where they're being
Where they
picked up
reside,
and
where's
where they're
their,
being
where's their
dropped off.
permanent residence?
Correct, yeah.
Right.
Well,
And if it
clearly,
is,
we need to work together with the school
I
district.
agree.
And
I
as
agree.
someone who worked for the
And
school
hopefully,
district for 33 years.
we don't shoot
around the
across each
town,
other's bows and destroy
Exactly.
that.
I think we can help one another, we can work together, and, you know, this is a hard time, I understand where everyone's coming from, but really I call for townwide unity on all of this.
and as a single-family house, and if it is a family unit, then there, in my opinion, should only be one satellite dish on the house, not 3 or 4. Because to me, that doesn't represent a family unit. So I would like you to look into that also, because if it is a family and they're all watching TV together and they're all on the same bills
Oh,
and
my God.
they're all like, why do we have 3 satellite
See,
dishes
my
on a
daughter's in her room
single-family
watching
house?
TV, my wife's in her room watching TV.
Because why would you have 3 satellite dishes on a single-family house?
Oh, that I can't answer that question.
Well, I can give you a couple residents
I
that
can
have.
tell you
But
that
we
nobody,
watch
nobody
different
watches
shows in
TV
my
as a family
house.
anymore.
But I think the point, to that point, then if there's a
watch
question
Fox
about
News, they watch
the
CNN.
residence of or the location of a particular home, then that's referred to code enforcement, and then code enforcement goes in and investigates that, and that's what they have been doing. It's not just, you know, a general assumption, but I'm gonna go back to family, to house. So when you go to a house to determine whether the house is, it can have other violations other than the overcrowded, but in an overcrowded home, the number of people residing in that home is not dictated necessarily by the familiar with blood relations. It is determined by the number of bedrooms and the square footage of sleeping area that's on the plan. And we have plans for these homes. If it's a rental home, we also have an engineer's plan for the house also, so we know the number of bedrooms, we know the number of square footage, and we know how many residents should be residing in that home legally.
Yeah, typically when we get a rental permit application in, we require a floor plan. And on that floor plan, we do an occupancy review and make the determination then how many people can reside in the house.
But that's not always an engineered drawing.
That's just for rentals,
Mhm.
rental permits, right.
But it's not always an engineered drawing, it could be drawn out by the applicant just on the back of an 8.5 by
Yes, it
11
can.
piece of paper.
It's, yeah, it's just
It's a rough sketch.
it's a floor plan that the applicant can make themselves.
Yep.
An engineer's report is something that's separate that they would submit in lieu of the town doing an inspection.
So there is two avenues that can happen. If you apply for a rental permit and you either, somebody, an official from the town goes in and inspects the home and sees the number of bedrooms and determines the occupancy. If somebody from the town is not going in and visually verifying all of that, then you must have the engineer's report that is stamped by, is it an engineer's report, correct? And it is stamped and verified by an engineer, correct?
It verifies that the house complies with Riverhead Town Code.
And it does state the number.
And sanitary code and state
Yeah,
code.
It substitutes for the code enforcement officer going there and doing the actual rental inspection.
But they must also include the size of the bedrooms?
The floor plan is submitted with every application.
So we do know the
Irrespective.
occupancy of all of the homes that have rental permits?
Correct.
Correct.
And there have been some bad characters and engineers that have submitted several reports where they have found the reports invalid. We had one engineer that submitted 25 reports in a week saying that he was inspecting all of these houses in one day. He made a mistake of having the same date on the letter. So we were able to pick that up, and we did reach out to him and told him that we were gonna turn him into the state if he didn't stop doing that. But there are bad characters also, and engineers that will stamp drawings saying that there's only 3 bedrooms when there could possibly be 5 or 6. Or they're not going into the basement to see the additional bedrooms, or vice versa. But once you get over 4 bedrooms, you're supposed to be going back to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services to make sure that the sanitary system can handle the number of bedrooms and the number of occupants in the house. And I think that that's a mechanism that the town can use also in order to stop these overcrowded houses.
We have discussed that about the sanitary code, if that's another avenue that we can go after them, especially when you have the overcrowded, and, you know, you have the cesspool coming, they're being pumped out every week. So you guys have been on the alert, and that's on your radar also for, an issue that maybe we can go after.
Well, I'm glad we are having this discussion. I wonder if we could just sort of summarize our plan moving forward, just so the public knows that we're working on this.
Well, I think part of it is code enforcement. I think having the meetings and continuing to develop strategies to address the homes. I think adding more code enforcement officers, also beefing up our code a little so that we can, violators will have to face increased fines to make it less profitable. I think we are still working with the DA's office and with our town attorneys to see if there are other avenues that we can pursue to discourage renting of houses to more than is legally permitted. So I think that is a key to all of this.
And what's the differentiation between a boarding house, where you have multiple residents that are not related, and a family unit? I would like to know, because that's something that's been discussed in the past, and that has gone back and forth, and I know it's a gray area, but I think that we need clarification on that issue. And I also think, as I've discussed in the past with code enforcement, that we adopt our laws or the state laws into the town code as far as property management, so that we can bring it to our justice court without always having to bring it a Supreme Court action. So that's been discussed in the past, and I think that's very important also, that we get that done in code revision to adopt the state building code and the property maintenance law into our town code so that we can write town tickets.
Well, that's what the proposed resolution does.
So good, I'm
I
glad
thought
you
it was-
added that, Jody. Can you maybe give us a few other things of what your plan is moving forward with code revision? To piggyback on the
I'll
items
just-
that we just discussed?
I'll just send you an email of the code revision request, because you're liaison to code revision, right?
No, I just mean overall code enforcement.
Well, we're gonna be having meetings, I think that's a good start. I think that the IPS system that we have in the computer now, where the link for people to file code enforcement complaints, I think that just as we advertise all the other events that are happening through town, seeing as this is a hot topic issue, that we should have something on the TV outside, something on Channel 22, telling people how to report these overcrowded houses, or where they see multiple people with multiple children leaving a house in the morning and getting on a bus, that we could start investigating those houses. Because, you know, we have been reactive, because there are a lot of code complaints that come into the code enforcement division, and we are, you know, short-staffed in my opinion. Code enforcement would pay for themselves if they were given more staff and more cars and more capabilities. And the IPS system was a big hurdle over the years in trying to get that system in. But now that we have it, it's very easy to track. And I think that it's very important that the public knows, because driving by a house, you would never know what's going on outside. But if you're living right next door to it, you do. And if you go to the Town of Riverhead website and you go to Hot Links, it'll say, it used to say code complaints, now it says something different, which I'm working on with IT. But it should say code complaints, and you.
It says, it's code enforcement complaints. It's a
Okay,
one
I'm
click away.
looking at it right now. So if you go to code complaints and I tell people, because they're like, oh, I want to remain anonymous, I say, put in my name. So Rich calls me every now and then, he's like, we got another complaint with your name on it. But you can file the complaint, it will be investigated, and, you know, the first sentence should say overcrowded or multiple families living in the house. And those are the ones that I think that we all agree should be focused on immediately in order to help the school district try and alleviate the overpopulation.
And I think people also living in a house that's overcrowded and that's being rented out, I urge them to come forward also, because a lot of these houses, when you go in, they, you know, as I said, they're being overcharged, they're unsafe, there's extension cords all over, people are living in garages, they're sleeping in basements, and that is not the way it should be. So I urge anybody who's living in an overcrowded house to come forward, to bring that to our attention so that we can investigate it and make sure that the landlord, for the amount that somebody's being charged, is provided with a safe, clean place to live. So I think that's an important factor in all of this also.
Made me really sad when we looked at one of the places with really unsafe conditions, and I could see that there was a birthday crown there so I knew there was a little child living there, so, agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for all
So,
that you're
yeah,
doing.
I thank you for
Thanks,
all of your
Rich.
efforts. Thank you.
There's problems with sex offenders living right next door to people that are, you know,
Good job.
renting
Keep
rooms
going.
in houses, and you have a sexual predator right next door. We had a problem across the street a couple years ago where I actually got a call from the principal of the middle school at that time saying, did you know that this happened? And it was a police and a school district thing, so it wasn't brought to the town board's attention. But when you have rooms that are being rented out to 2 adults and 2 children, and you have a sexual predator next door, and nobody knows that those 2 adults and
Well,
2 children are there in the house, that's a problem.
Yes, yeah. There's notification, if there's a sexual predator in our town, there's notification to the police department.
Uh-huh.
And
And
if they're with, and it also goes to the school district also. So there is, it's not an
Right?
anonymous.
Understood, but if you're living in one of the rooms next to that sexual predator and you're not here legally, the chances of you calling and reporting that sex offender when you're living in an illegal dwelling that's rented to multiple families or multiple people, chances are you're not gonna report that. I mean, we hear it from the Anti-Bias Task Force all the time, that crimes are not reported because, or they're moving into these places because it's the only place that they can go, and
So it's an
those.
unidentified?
They were an identified sex offender in the house, that people moved in. Whether or not they knew it, I'm not sure. But
Well,
the
there
fact
are
that you're saying that it's there,
I know there's safeguards
You
in
make a
place, but
notification, correct?
You're not gonna,
yeah, but if you don't know
Translate
that
every-
those 2 adults and those 2 children are living there next to him, how do you notify them?
Hopefully the school would notify them.
It didn't happen, and you know the case that I'm talking about, across
Well,
the street.
I think the point is, let's keep working, stay on top of everything, keep moving forward, working together, and, you know, if we could keep all the hysteria in control. So, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
bringing some clarity.
Rich.
Well, we're gonna do, 331, which is great.
Yep, so we'll move to special permit
Did we
update
do-
for 331 East Main.
Did we do 331 already? No.
No.
No. No, we discussed it before, but
They've
there's
changed.
Are
something.
you here every day?
Low again, I know.
I know.
I need an office, you got a spare office?
Yeah, man, if there was like an apartment building, you could
You
rent an
asked
apartment
quick,
out there.
we're moving quick.
We're trying to keep
Oh,
up
they
with
wanna
you.
go
Yeah.
out the back. Or the side.
Hello again, Pat.
Hello again.
Did you have a good evening?
Yes.
So you only hours ago.
I know, it wasn't that long ago.
Greg, here's enough copies for the book.
Oh, good, it's only 4 pages.
Yeah, it's just a quick update based on the last meeting.
Sorry, that's me.
Really good.
That you?
Very
That was me,
I
that
was
was
gonna
me.
say,
Sorry.
We woke Larry up, he fell out of his chair.
Is it same?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, just, both sides of the table can see it. We've got some sketches. Well, first, we'll start with the traffic circulation.
Okay.
So, where we left off last time after work session, the town board had expressed a desire for the applicant for this project to remove the egress onto Main Street. What they've done here is they provided 2 sketch plans, Sketch B and Sketch C, which have relocated that egress now onto the directing traffic back out onto the town-owned parking lot. Slightly different configurations. Sketch B sort of maintains a normal, straight 90-degree parking lot throughout the parking garage, and then has them exit out onto the town-owned parking lot. I note that it's approximately 40 feet from the roadway to where the egress would be. And obviously, it's a one-way street, so one-way right-of-way, so they would be directed out south, and they'd have to go out to Heidi Bear Way.
But they have the ability to go out back here
They
too.
also, well, yes, for the front portion, I believe, I think there's 24 stalls, I don't know the exact number, but the front, whoever parks back here has the ability to exit here. Once they get back to the northern separation of the parking area, this would have to be one-way.
Okay.
So anyone who parks here would be going out here. So yeah, it effectively splits the egress,
Okay.
roughly half the parking lot. Sketch Plan C, similar parking arrangement for a majority of the parking area. However, once you get up towards the northern portion of the parking area here, it seems very tight and clustered. You've got these 2 head-in spots at the northernmost terminus. And then there's, parking's at 90 degree here and an additional spot here. Now, being that the parking spaces are already undersized, town code requires 10 by 20. These spaces are proposed, I believe, at 9 foot by 19. It just seems like this could be sort of chaotic. Like if you're that person parked in here, if someone here's got a big truck or, a vehicle, it just seems like it could be a little cramped and a little bit chaotic. So in terms of the traffic circulation, staff recommends Sketch Plan B, just because it seems to be a little more organized.
And how far back is this?
Sketch Plan C, I believe it's approximately 65 feet.
Can you guarantee to only motorcycle drivers in the front? And compact cars?
The reason we came up with C
They're
was,
just little tiny cars.
the garage will be screened by some kind of lattice system. And the feeling here was that once you pull up here, you could actually see through and get a little better visibility of pedestrian. Whereas here, this is gonna be a block wall for the mechanical stuff. So your visibility might not be
Oh, makes sense.
as good. I mean, we're fine going either way. Internally, we preferred this just for the better visibility. I understand Greg's position here where it's just a smoother flow in and out too.
If you did only compact cars here, would that make a difference?
I mean, it would, just in terms of alleviating some of the space, being that it is tight. No, I don't know that we can guarantee that a resident is gonna have
But
a
you do see
compact
that in
car.
some parking
Yeah,
lots.
I mean, if you
that-
just,
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have compact cars, right? I mean, there's just,
I'll never buy
but,
I would assume.
yeah, but I mean, you could dictate for them for the compact cars?
Yeah, the one thing to bear in mind too, is,
Smart
it's
car.
not like
Yeah.
this is the public parking lot. We
No.
have cars coming and going, coming and
Yeah.
going.
This could be
That's
for the,
true.
this could be for the
It's
smart
It's
cars.
a private park.
It's really, 2 or 3 trips a day maybe in a car.
And you're gonna have an on-site, or no?
No.
No, okay.
But the other thing, what we could consider is that we would make this, we typically put charging stations for electric cars in all of our facilities. So if we put it here, those tend to be smaller
Smaller
in
cars.
size too.
You're talking about an
That's
on-site
true.
person? You said, they said a couple days a week, right? A few days a week they'll be.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah.
but not.
Well, I was gonna say, if you had,
Not
you know
full-time.
what I'm saying, if there was a staff
Yeah.
person, it would be a staff
No,
parking
not
spot.
full-time.
Just so the board is aware, at the last planning board meeting, the planning board recognizes it has no jurisdiction over the site plan. Some of the members have looked at the application, and you'll be seeing a memo coming from them shortly. They're gonna be asking if the town board would require a 10 by 20-foot parking stall. They believe that the 10 by 20 better suits, parking needs. So that's just an FYI. You'll be seeing a memo recommending that from the planning board.
So, just to give some credence to the recommendation, I know we don't, distinguish between compact versus larger cars. I think because of the way cars are made today, that you have very little and you have very big. And you tend to see that in parking lots to be able to maximize the actual square footage of that. Is that something we could address, where you had a couple, if somebody's gonna have a pickup truck or a large car, where.
We could, I mean, we do have the parking that's outside the building as well. There's 4 or 5 spots.
But I mean, for internally, if one of the thoughts from the planning board is that you're gonna have these larger cars that may make it difficult with a smaller spot. So if you, had some of the compact areas, obviously don't have to be quite as large. And then to create some larger spots for the big, I mean, you're not having that many tenants that you can't,
Right, but
are you assigning spots?
I think we're leaning towards doing that here.
Yeah, but
So
you
that would
gotta-
be-
You gotta average out the stalls, you can't, I don't know.
I mean, if you make some larger, it would inherently shrink some. I mean, right now, they're all providing consistent 9 by 19. I think when you start altering them, if you have a 10 by 19, a couple of 10 by 19s, now you start getting into ones that may be 8.5 or 8, which.
But I'm just curious, the compact car spaces, what are they generally?
I'd have to do some research. I don't know off the top of my head.
And then if compact cars park in the bigger stalls because there aren't any other stalls available, then what problem do you have?
Well, that's what you have assigned.
And I have to tell you, in East Hampton Village, they have the compact car stalls, and I've seen the big pickup trucks parked.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, it's just, people park where they feel.
Where they
But
can find a
if you-
spot.
If you're a tenant who has an assigned space and you come to your space and your neighbor's in your spot.
Oh, I mean, but then you run into the issue, if the first tenant, come in, they have a compact car, someone moves, you get a new tenant in there who doesn't have a compact car, I think that could lead to some,
It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
some issues down the road.
Okay.
I would recommend,
Leave it as
being
is.
consistent as
Consistent.
9 by 19. And I do note, I have done some research for other towns on Long Island. The 10 by 20 parking stall requirement, I understand, Riverhead, first and foremost, the farming community, the parking spaces, they want them for larger trucks, vehicles like that. But Riverhead is kind of on the one end. A lot of other towns require 9 by 18, 9 by
Okay.
19. So there are other towns who, maintain
Actually
parking.
have
or
I think
small-
every
small-
town has its own
Yeah,
parking
every town, has-
requirements.
but, I mean,
Well,
again, so these.
it was a nice thought, I mean, environmentally.
You go to these parking
They said
garages
we're
in the
moving
city
towards
or
more
the airport,
compact
you
cars, and you
can't-
do see that,
open
I
door.
see it everywhere I
Ooh.
go. Have you done it in other projects?
Not designated compact, we do have the
Mhm.
charging stations.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Yeah,
Fossil
right.
fuel burning charging
I
stations.
mean, you'd hope that your tenant would come and stay there for 10 years, but the reality is they don't. So you can't dictate what kind of car they should drive.
I mean, I do appreciate the line of sight here.
I do too.
Especially, as the town develops, you're gonna have more people walking back and forth, and to have a clearer line of sight, I think is
I like that too. And that's-
good.
And that's mostly pedestrian there, there's not a lot of vehicle traffic.
And I think a lot of cars have backup cameras now also, which is a change in the technology, so I
help.
think,
My wife
you
backed
know.
into something the other day.
But I think that there are some safeguards with that.
Now, there is some, it is worthy to note, now, it's a 36-unit apartment building, they are providing 37 stalls on site. They could hypothetically, if the town board's amenable to it, in order to alleviate the line of sight issues, if they were to eliminate one spot to facilitate a wider exit, better field of view, they'd still have one stall per dwelling unit. The laws there, as of the town code, they're not required to provide it, so that's one direction that the town board agrees, if the loss of one parking stall underneath to just facilitate a wider exit, better visibility.
Well,
that would
where's
be
the
some-
entrance on the south side, right?
So, yeah, the entrance is still on the south side.
Yeah, so why?
Well, why would they lose one spot?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm saying, because, just for this egress, the southern portion of the building, when you get to the halfway point, these vehicles can enter and exit through the back.
Right.
But once you get to the vehicles up here, they have to go out this way.
I'm-
So when you're going, there is gonna be a sidewalk here, so I mean, similar to when the egress was on Main Street, you know, by the time you could get visibility here, your car, you know, your hood's in the middle of the
Yeah,
walkway.
but
Again, just a suggestion, if the town board wanted to entertain it.
I think if you have one spot for each apartment, I would prefer the safety of the entrance and exit. That would be, I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but, you know, like I said, there's a sidewalk there.
There's a stop sign there, and I
But you
don't
still have
see
to
that
inch out.
heavily, what's that?
You still have to inch out?
You do.
Sure you do, you have to do that no matter where you are. No matter where
We
you
can
are.
mark that one visitor.
Pardon
Yeah.
me, what'd you say?
We can mark it visitor, so that nobody parks there on a regular basis.
And this is all the mechanicals here?
Correct, so you still have the window boxes, which we talked a little bit to ARB about last night.
Any thought to make that just public open space? And this way nobody has to maintain?
We don't mind maintaining
I
it.
did mention it last
um,
night, but I don't know if you heard me.
So I think what we discussed last night too after the meeting, we're gonna come up with some kind of 3D rendering to show exactly what
Okay.
the boxes look like.
Okay.
Just, and
I
then.
Well,
didn't know
but-
we were gonna talk about the boxes.
The boxes.
Yeah. I'm very happy to see the continuity on Main Street, the walkability.
So,
A Subway
has,
sandwich.
has Secra started on this?
Yes.
Okay, because
One
Landmarks
more.
Landmarks Preservation Commission never got a notification, so I thought that when we updated the secret law, that they were going to be included in the package for distribution, so that they can weigh in and be part of the secret process?
Well, yeah, the coordination letter was sent out yesterday. Landmarks unfortunately didn't receive it, but when I looked through there is no formal application to the Landmarks Preservation that I was able to find on the website. I know that was one of Mr. Wine's comments, that they haven't received formal application. They will get a copy of that secret notification, the coordination letter. The project was reviewed by them on September 23rd.
I was there.
And it went to ARB on September 25th. So, I mean, they have received correspondence, they have seen the plan.
No, they hadn't, not until they brought it in on Monday night.
Yeah, and the direction that we've been instructed to is to have the town board first review the project, then refer it to ARB and Landmarks.
So how is that a coordinated review?
Because the secret comments have not been done yet.
Correct.
Yeah, but-
The secret coordination period has not ended yet.
Understood, but I think that the experts, like the Landmarks Preservation Commission and the ARB, should be
Jeff, can you pay
reviewing it.
attention to this, because you're gonna have to answer to.
Should be reviewing at the same time as the town board is. They're the experts.
It is a concurrent review. We are addressing issues to the town board. They are modifying plans based on the town board comments, which are then seen by the ARB and the Landmarks.
No, because the Landmarks just saw this for the first time Monday night. And this is a plan that was presented to them, that was done prior to them coming to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. So what I'm saying is the whole idea of revamping the secret process was to not delay developers so that they have a coordinated review and a concurrent review. And that didn't happen here, because now you have a plan that the Landmarks is before them saying, this is the plan. And they're saying, well, wait a second, how did this plan get drafted without our input?
Well, the building design should not be drafted or based upon input from the Landmarks or ARB. The application comes in, the town board gets first blush. What's been happening in the past, Jody, is that applicants have been rushing right to the Landmarks and ARB before planning board, or in this case, the town board, has had a chance to even look at it for the first time. And the developers and the applicant and the ARB or the Landmarks have been changing the design of the building before the planning board or the town board. We're just trying to avoid that. We want the town board or the planning board, whichever the case may be, to have the first look at it, and then the coordination begins.
Okay, so the town board just saw this
Good,
last
good for
Monday.
you.
And I know that the supervisor had mentioned that she was glad to see that it came down to 4 stories. So were there meetings that took place with members of the town board prior to presenting this to us 2 weeks ago?
No, this is the application by the.
So
by
they
the
didn't meet with you
applicant.
They
to
came
discuss
to-
the 4
they came to
stories?
Tuesday pre-submission
Yeah, they
meeting.
came to
The four
pre-submission.
stories was the initial submission. There was never a 5-story submission on this application. The applicants had come in for a pre-submission meeting with planning staff. At that time, we had recommended a 4-story, so there was never a 5-story submission that was made. 4 stories was the initial application.
Okay, so planning pre-submission conference, that took
Planning
place.
pre-submission meeting, yes.
Well, I think the whole idea is we're trying to avoid all that back and forth, which is hard on everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I
do
just, so
coordinated
I would
review.
just like the
Okay, I
the
just
application.
wanna go back. Coordinated review, so the town board chooses lead agency.
At first, you start the 30-day clock for assuming lead agency, and that's the first step in the whole process. Once the
Okay.
application is complete, you send it out to all involved and interested agencies to determine anybody who else wants to be lead agency. Nobody ever does. And then in 30 days, we take, and we ask they get their comments back, and we provide them to you. And the town board decides whether or not it's gonna assume lead agency, and whether or not to require a positive declaration or a negative declaration.
Okay, so, but what, I'm hearing conflicting things, because I just heard Greg say that it should come to the town board first before it goes out to the other agencies.
All right, and Jeff,
That's what I
would
said,
you,
the same thing.
Jeff said the same thing.
So, just to
Ju-
detail the
I
history,
just-
the application was brought before the town board at a work session on September 12th. The secret resolution initiating the coordinated review was adopted on September 17th. The letter went out on September 25th. It was reviewed by the Landmarks Preservation on September 23rd, by the ARB on September 25th. So the letter that gets sent out basically just says, here, we have an application, town board has desired the request for lead agency. Do you have any objection to lead agency? Now, the town board had reviewed the initial plan, made the recommendations to eliminate the egress. The plans that show the eliminated egress and show the consistent display windows along Main Street were the plans that were reviewed by the Landmarks and by the ARB, which are based on the town board comments. So, I mean, there is communication, it is moving along. I mean, the desire for the secret was, as you said, to, allow development and kind of move processes along. So we have from September 12th to September 25th, approximately 2 weeks, we have now input from the town board, we have input from the LPC, and we have input from ARB. These comments from LPC and the ARB are now combined, bringing it back to the town board to get a direction now for the applicant to go. I mean, I would think 2 weeks to have this many steps completed.
I guess the fact that the letter to the Landmarks went out after the Landmarks reviewed it, I guess is the thing that I'm kind of questioning.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, I will note that. No, it was just a matter of timing for getting the letter out, but again, I don't see Landmarks or ARB wishing to assert lead agency. I don't see, if they ever wanted to assert lead agency, I mean, they're not the decision makers, they're not the policy makers. So a secret referral is generally sent out to agencies who have, like, authorizing jurisdiction on it.
Correct, and that would be.
If the Landmarks ever wanted to say, yes, we want to assume lead agency, if that ever went to the DEC up in Albany,
I don't think they have
there's
authority.
no way I'd see the DEC siding with the Landmarks Preservation Commission over the town board who has.
I'm not
authority.
concerned about them taking lead agency. I'm concerned about their comments being incorporated in. And you're saying that the procedure is working, and I'm just saying that the letter went out on the 25th, but the Landmarks met on it on the 23rd. So they were questioning why they were not included in the secret process, because the application was made, how long ago?
But, Jeff, I'm gonna go back to you again. The secret process, in what portion of the process, Jody's saying they're not being included. They are being included because we're moving forward. There's been it's still in the process of the coordination for the secret process.
Right.
That has not closed, so,
Correct.
could you explain that?
That's exactly it, and that's what I said earlier, is the first step in the whole application review process is once the application is deemed complete by staff, we bring it to you, we do a resolution for assuming lead agency, the project's described to you at a work session, and then we send it out for the 30-day comment period.
I'm with you. This is
In which the comments come back and you include it in the secret determination. Right, so, right, okay,
very nice.
okay.
Is the Downtown Revitalization Committee on the notification for the,
No, they're
no?
not, no.
No, they're not
Okay.
involved agency.
Have they seen this yet, Catherine?
No.
It's beautiful, thank you.
So,
Sorry about
to
that.
address the LPC,
Yeah.
so you don't feel left out. Kelly had the one comment about the roof line,
Oh, you did that already.
yes. I wish we could build it that fast, but.
I wish, yeah. I don't know where you got the seagulls from, but.
So you did pull the roof back to
So we pulled the roof
prevent
back.
the shadowing?
Kelly had made a comment at LPC about making it look more like a three-story building by eliminating that overhang roof.
Looks like the wedding cake.
I'm really.
The one thing we're still wrestling with is that dividing wall, kinda sticks out up at
Which
the
one?
top.
Yeah, why is that? Is that structural?
Okay, just to separate the apartments?
To separate the two
Yeah.
apartments, there's two different apartments there, so
Is there a
we're-
door that actually goes out? I don't see a door.
I understand that, I would, you know,
we
for
need
privacy.
something there that's kind of
So put a
The other
white-
comment that was made the
put-
last time, our work
put
session
a
was
white timber
about
deck or
reducing the
something.
amount of stucco
So
on the western
might look
side of the
nice.
building. Did you address that?
We're working through that with both LPC and ARB.
Cause instead of using a stucco, they talked about using a mixed concrete spray.
Not even a mixed concrete spray, just to reduce the amount of stucco type materials. Landmarks and ARB tend to like a lot of stucco as a predominant building building material.
Landmarks does like stucco?
Yes.
Not
Back-
this Landmarks.
Back when, the beginning of the year, when I
Right?
did my initial code,
Bob, you were there.
proposed code
ARB
amendment,
said-
I put in,
ARB
get
said
rid of
something
stucco as
about
predominant
stucco.
building color, and Richard Wines
They didn't
just
mind.
did
This
not.
is-
Oh,
want it.
no.
This is
Yeah,
set
he
back
wants
here
it in
as
there.
well.
But let's talk about this building here.
Yes.
So that was a comment to reduce some of that, so you will be bringing back some,
We're addressing
okay.
everything that the other two boards brought.
The
Okay,
ARB,
very
the
good.
ARB wanted a grander entrance.
You see,
Yes.
you see two dividers here on the.
Yeah, that's probably a little inaccurate.
Okay.
I also just wanna note, within this larger packet of images, the applicant did incorporate the existing streetscapes.
Thank
So
you.
that the town board can really kind of assess
I
the
appreciate
visual
you
impact.
straightening out that sidewalk next to that old flower shop, because that looks much nicer in this picture than in
By the way, I have
They
to tell you,
replanted over there, it actually looks very
If you go
nice.
to
this
the last
illustration
page,
is
it's-
exactly what I
Okay.
proposed in January of this year with the building step backs. That's exactly a great illustration of what I proposed back in January.
Well, we're very
Are you
happy
rubbing
that
your
the
fuzzy?
applicant has come in
You
and
rubbing your
taken
little fuzzy?
heed
Yeah,
of your
they've been
suggestions.
So
Oh, very nice,
I wish we
okay.
could make it a little bit bigger, we're trying to work on that.
Sure, okay.
but That gives you the entire streetscape.
Very good. And I think this is exactly what the boards were asking to be able to see, when they looked at projects, so.
Well, the ARB also talked about the watering, they're concerned about,
Yeah.
just because sometimes in the past, there've been plants put in, but then they're not continually maintained, so that was a discussion last night.
On the east side of the building over there?
On the
planter
north
boxes.
side, the planter box.
Oh, the planter
Yeah,
boxes,
They actually
okay.
inquired whether we could put a covenant in about it.
That
What,
they should
for
water their
watering?
plants?
Yeah, they did.
No dead plants hanging
No,
from the
we
building
want, no,
on your
no,
high
we're
market
gonna allow
rate?
it. We want them to die.
There is a general, when we do site plan approvals, there are sort of boilerplate covenants that recite a lot of the town code. And I know one of them specifically deals with planter boxes and maintaining vegetation.
Well, we have someone on the ARB that's their specialty is,
Nice job.
the plants and the trees and such, so she brought that up.
What's this little thing here?
It's a picture,
Yeah, it just, I don't know if that's,
it's a rendering.
What's that there?
I don't know if that's just kind of a
I-
wall to
think
to
it-
block the alley.
It's hard to do it in the rendering, but this actually goes back. So the parking garage on the first level is property line to property line, but because of the light and air we need to get in, the building actually steps back 5 feet
Okay,
for windows.
okay.
So this, although it appears to be flat, it is flat, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So this is the extension of the windows.
But
and
it's a
then this
closed,
goes-
a closed
That's
off, it's closed off, okay, yeah.
There'll be one door on this elevation as an emergency egress door.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's not an open alleyway.
No,
Okay.
Now, the question is, are you gonna be back here again tomorrow?
what's tomorrow? You guys voting tomorrow?
You've been here
We'll be
every day, yeah.
No,
Okay.
not
All right,
until
so
Monday, I
just
don't
to
think.
clarify, with the board is okay with sketch plan C. I believe the applicant said they would denote that as visitor
Visitors.
parking, just so that it's not, continually occupied.
Visitor or manager.
So direct the applicant, they can go forward with
This
sketch
is
plan
not
C.
visit.
Everybody is okay with that, sketch
Yep.
plan C? Okay.
And then in terms of the updated renderings, does the board like with the overhang removed?
I have no objection to that.
I'm not sure if I want that apartment I wanna remove, but that's all right. I realize it's visual. But then you, yeah. the
It's
sun-
nice.
Yeah, it should be nice to you.
It's a little bit open airy.
Yeah, the sun comes up behind it.
I did read Landmark's recommendations, and they also did make a recommendation that the west side of the building on the fourth floor be set back a couple more feet, but,
West side.
yeah.
Well, Kelly's on both boards.
Well, it's stepped back
She
5
brought
feet,
it up.
and then.
On the west side of the building, on the longer portion of the building, the fourth floor be set back a little bit.
On this,
On this elevation,
right, that's the east side,
Here.
the east side of the building.
that's the west side.
Oh, the west side, I'm sorry, west side, okay.
I'm good with it. I like to defer to the ARB and
Step it
landmarks
back,
when
it's
we
another
can.
$400 an apartment.
So thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
making those adjustments.
How does a formal, so normally, how it's happened in the past, Greg and Jeff, is that you'll say to an applicant that you have to go before the landmarks and the ARB. So if there's an application that needs to be filled out, or maybe it can just be forwarded from planning to landmarks and ARB, so that they know about the application, they see the copy of the site plan, so they can see what the elevations will be. I know the elevations are given at the time of the application, so, you know, maybe that can be, when an application comes in, it automatically goes to landmarks and ARB, a copy, so that they can start reviewing it.
That was the original process. We had historically received an application. It went out through a referral process, automatically went to ARB, automatically went to LPC. But what happened is applicants were appearing before these boards. LPC and ARB were making recommendations, and the applicant was revising plans before the town board had even seen the initial drawings.
Right.
Okay,
So,
so,
Or the town board had any comments of whether
Correct.
they actually even fit into the building
correct. So
envelope.
if we had
Right.
followed the original process, the ARB and the LPC would have seen the plan, which showed egress onto Main Street. Then the town board would have seen
Right.
it. You know, they would have gotten a set of directives from those two boards. Then the
Okay.
town board would have come and said, oh, we want the egress changed. So it would significantly, materially change the plans. So you'd have to go back to the ARB again to now
Okay.
review.
And it
the
would
revised
be
drawings.
adding time to the process.
Yeah.
all right, so understood. So had they not come here 2 weeks ago to the town board work session, and had I not mentioned to you that the Landmarks Preservation Commission was meeting on the 23rd, they would have had to wait until next month's
Next
meeting in order to get before the landmarks, because your letter didn't go out to them until the 25th. So they would have had to wait until the fourth Monday of October in order to come to landmarks and ARB. And I think that is a delay in the process.
Well, I think and
Well-
I'm gonna say it's more of a delay to go back and change plans
I
and
would hate
revamp
like hell to-
anything, and then bring it back and have it not even be the
Okay.
building envelope.
So then I guess you'll be back before the landmarks on
I
October
would-
24th with their recommendations, right? Okay.
I think this is a better way. I just can't imagine being a developer or an architect or anything else trying to put this project together and have to change it 9,000 ways before it even comes to the town board and makes the final decision. So no, I think this is a better route as far as let us sift through it and then let
Yeah.
the other boards look at what we came up with and make
I
it.
also think it's been hard on those other boards when sometimes they put all this time and effort and then it went to the town
Oh,
board and it got changed
I'm just looking
anyway.
at the money it takes to revise plans
Right.
after plan
It's
after
a
plan
good-
after
it's a
plan
good
after plan
idea,
after
and
plan.
I'm glad
Although
we're
these are
doing
pretty
it.
pictures and you did it pretty quickly, but still.
I know, but this applicant in particular was looking to get on for a resolution, I believe, at the middle of October, right? So that can't happen now, because you have to come back to landmarks on October 24th.
Well, the
No.
applicant had requested the public hearing, I believe the date was October 15th.
Mhm.
They were asking for a public hearing on an existing, pattern for the building. Based on the town board, they had to revise the drawing, so I mean, that's a significant change that I would not have felt comfortable with scheduling a public hearing. At this point, I mean, if the town board's amenable, I mean, I don't know if the postings work out, but if the town board's agreeable at this stage in the application to schedule a public hearing, we can leave the secret coordination comment, we can leave the public hearing open,
For secret.
allow the secret coordination to close. I mean, at this point, if the town's agreeable to schedule the public hearing, we could go that route, if it's the board's desire.
I would like to do it, just because Landmarks Preservation Commission has seen it, but that's only because we gave you a heads up that they were meeting that following Monday.
Well-
Otherwise, you would've had to wait until October 24th in
Yeah,
order
you
to get
don't.
comments.
So let's move it.
The schedule is the schedule, we
Yeah, I mean,
understand that.
the planning department is cognizant of when the meetings are, the applicant would have been informed. But yes, the fact that they met before.
lucked
the-
out.
The week before
I know, it worked
LPC,
out.
it worked out.
Good.
So I mean,
Alright, very good.
would the board like me to schedule a resolution calling for a public hearing at the next available meeting?
I
think so.
I don't think there's gonna be any substantive changes,
Alright.
to this, other than possibly material. You have the comments from both of the,
Comments from ARB and
both of
LPC,
ARB
correct.
and Landmarks, and you don't feel that any of their comments require substantive changes at this point, then I think that would be okay.
Great,
All right?
thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
Thanks for your time.
thank you.
Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks for the nice pictures, I can't wait to show Sal. You know, one of us don't do this. He's gonna put a place behind this place.
Oh, thank you, never mind, great.
No,
Just one copy. We'll make a copy.
Garage here, he's gonna put two. Sal sent my two apartments in behind his garage,
Yeah, we're outside.
behind the funeral home.
You were on number
Oh.
9, resolution.
There's two,
Oh, I know what you're talking about, like the carriage house.
yeah,
Thank you.
there's two apartments.
All right, at this time, we will move on to resolutions, to continue with the resolutions, right? That's where we're up to?
I don't even know where we left
All right,
off.
so we are at resolution number 9, I believe it is, if you guys
My
want to get
computer shut up. Why did it shut off for?
Just let me know when you're ready.
No, you can get and talk, I gotta figure out what's wrong with this thing.
Okay, do you want John to figure? Jim's having a problem with his computer for getting
I got it.
resolution.
It
What
just-
else is new?
It must have been,
Okay, first one is appoints call and recreational staff to the recreation department.
I don't think you should take.
10 is appoints traffic control specialist to the police department.
specialists.
What did I say, specialists?
Doesn't matter.
Next is terminates agreement with an employee. 12 is authorizes supervisor to execute a retainer agreement with Lane M. Babka, Esquire of Babka Law Group for legal services for the Riverhead Youth Court, 2019-2020 year.
Babka.
Babka. Thinking, I'm
bread.
hungry, I'm thinking
Babka bread.
Babka.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait to get in your office and eat.
I'm just trying to get my stuff here straight. Next is authorize attendance at a fall erosion control field day training seminar.
Oh, my God.
Sounds like an exciting
Yeah, boy.
event.
Wasting away.
Next is attendance of one police department employee to the MPTC Defense Tactics Instructor Class. Next is award bid for update of the Town of Riverhead Comprehensive Master Plan and authorizes expenditure of community benefit funds. Do you guys want any explanation on that?
No,
Which one are we going with?
No, I like the AKR, I like the plan.
AKR.
I think there's some negotiations still going on now, but as far as the company, I think it's a great company. You did, you are,
Do
you
you
know, I
wanna come
knew
up
you
and
would.
just speak to this?
I knew you would.
I think this is exciting that we're able to move this
I
forward.
knew there was a reason you were here.
I was kinda
So we
like-
put out the bids, we received 2 bid results. We had a committee, consisting of, who was it? Was the town attorney's office, represented from my office.
Me?
Jim, Catherine, and Jeff
CDA.
from the CDA and
Bob
planning.
Posakevich,
Okay.
Joey Majorana.
Okay.
I have to give credit to Dawn and myself on negotiating. I know that the committee had recommended AKRF, and this is your new price proposal for all deliverables that you requested and required.
So the total cost is the $775,000 one?
No, it's been negotiated to $675,000 for all of the deliverables.
Nice.
How do you
Very good,
negotiate after we collect
Can I get a?
Because it's a request for proposal,
Mhm.
and it's professional services, and we specifically, in the language, because I drafted the request for proposal, retain the right to negotiate. So,
So can you just explain some of the different deliverables that we'll be getting?
sure,
Well, and
Well,
it's the
the-
same thing, just to go back, with the pattern book, we also negotiated after.
that's correct.
Correct.
So essentially, one of the key differences between the proposals, and again, I was not part of the review committee, however, I did review it with Bob and with Councilman Wooten, and spoke to Joey and yourself. And the key difference was the totality of the services provided to begin the process and complete the process. Most significantly with AKRF was the drafting and implementation of the zoning in addition to the GEIS. The other entity's proposal, they submitted a proposal and basically took the position that in the future, if and when we got to that point, they would give us a price proposal for those aspects. what happens when you do that, the town board is aware, you leave yourself vulnerable because you have an entity doing a significant amount of background work and detail and study, and then you're almost at their mercy in order to complete the process utilizing them. But anyway, so the deliverables for AKRF include everything from complete environmental review, drafting of the zoning, obviously study, meetings with the town board, meetings with all the community groups. John, you might not have the, I don't know if you just took the updated one.
Here, John, you can take mine if that's,
There's two, it's fine.
okay.
Are you sure that's updated?
Yes, it's the updated correct price.
So, I just lost my train of thought, I
The
apologize.
deliverables,
Deliverable, and the maps.
the maps,
And the maps,
GIS.
and the GIS, and the proper boundaries of the town, because, you know, we've been alerted that perhaps the boundaries of the town are not accurate.
Really?
Yeah, and so at least probably on the average of 2 meetings per hamlet.
Excellent.
Yeah, so, I think, I don't wanna speak for Jefferson, but I think he's extremely pleased.
And they will address our TDRs requests
Everything.
and our
Yes.
marketability or
So,
feasibility.
one of the issues I negotiated with them is, in their original proposal, they said any item, any new issue or item, that comes to light as a result of the study, they would negotiate and charge additional for. So I required them to add in language that whatever has previously not been identified in a comprehensive master plan and/or the specifications to the request for proposals, then and only then could they come back to the town and seek to, you know,
And the TDR,
additional
the
compensation.
TDR was requested in.
1000%.
Yes. I just wanted to make sure that, because I know that that's been a concern.
What?
Yeah.
What?
No, I mean, that's something we've been talking about for years, is the
Yes.
TDRs, so,
Oh, yeah.
and that's
And-
definitely in emails that I sent.
Well, that's why
Yeah.
I'm so happy that we're able to move forward with the comprehensive plan and get all of this in one package.
Right.
At a price that is a very
appreciate that.
reasonable
I tell you, we
price,
looked-
and thank you for your
We
negotiations.
looked at both proposals, and one was certainly heads above the other, but there was a concern about
Right,
being cost prohibitive, and now this brings it within the realm of possibility. It's a
exactly.
good-
We
good
were,
job.
we were concerned about the cost,
Good job.
but,
It really came down to deliverables.
right, I was
Right.
just gonna say, it's all about the deliverables, we were getting a lot more with this company, so now that you brought the price down, which we're most appreciative of, I'm much more comfortable with this. Jeff, did you
I'm-
wanna add anything? That you were there and with
Who was
all our
hot?
discussions?
Holding you. Good God.
I've worked with both companies in the past, both AKRF with Bob White and Paul Barkhurst and Frank Fish. He did the Wading River study, he did a number of hamlet studies in Southampton, so I worked with both companies. Both are very professional, very competent, but for what we need, AKRF is clearly the company that is the right choice in this instance.
I'm just concerned that I voted to put it out for an RFP and I voted to get the results back. I think $700,000 is a lot of money for our town right now. I think that, you know, I can't see much changing from the comprehensive plan that was adopted in Jamesport, and it can't change at EPCAL until 5 years after we close on the property. And Wading River, we just did the update of the master plan in 2012, I think it was,
We did an
the
update.
update
We did an
of the
update.
hamlet.
Some years ago.
And I see the importance of the TDR program, I see the importance of zoning on Route 58, and I see the importance of zoning in downtown Riverhead. But as far as a town-wide update to the master plan, I think $700,000 is excessive. So that's just my opinion.
Well,
I
certainly,
think
certainly
it's a
it's,
small drop in the bucket.
Right,
And I can
certainly-
tell you why, because
I was gonna. well,
this master plan, or the comp plan that was going on now was, what, 19, 15, 16 years old?
2003.
Right,
All right, 16 years old, and historically, master plans are good for about a decade, so this is really over, and we've been doing spot work with the
Yep.
Wade River study, with some of the DC-5 on East Main Street, or we've been doing little things to make sure, and always comparing it to the comp plan. I think that this would probably, since we're so close, I think, within 10 or 20 years of being completely built out, to what the comp plan says. This is probably the last time that we have to do this, to this
At
level.
this level, yep.
Yeah,
really do.
I don't think we're gonna see much changes that are being proposed for the Jamesport area and for the Laurel area.
Well, I don't
And
know about that.
I certainly don't wanna see any changes or upzoning in the farmlands.
Well, that's what's so great about this. This is a community input.
Yeah, really.
You know, it's been
Shreds, man.
16 years since the community's had the ability to weigh in the direction for the planning for this community for the future. And I think that, you know, especially with being able to keep up the number of community meetings, 2 meetings in each hamlet, I think that it gives the community the opportunity to participate, to see what they want to see developed. We know on Route 58, the big box stores are not working as a mechanism at this point. So we're going to have to move to something else. And what is that? You know, and we need the direction to be able to do that. And, you know, we know that the farmland and open space is of paramount importance here, and how are we going to be able to preserve that moving forward? Because we know what we have in the comprehensive plan right now has not been as successful as everyone had hoped with the transfer development rights. So how can we do that? And to be able to do that in a comprehensive way, encompassing the whole town, I think is incredibly important at this point.
And you're right, and I think just the fact that we had to do a Wade River Hamlet study, and the fact that we had to do these different pocket types of, shows that the comp plan, although great at the time, is a little not keeping up with it. So I think it just illustrates that we do need a comp plan.
I think that, I agree with you, that Route 58 and downtown, especially because when the comprehensive plan was adopted for downtown, it didn't take into consideration the parking needs. So I think that those, as well as the TDR program and creating new receiving areas and things of that nature, but I know that the SECRA study for that, I think, was estimated at $30,000 to do the TDR study for the SECRA.
No, not 30.
I know that was, number was put out there, but that's not a
No.
realistic number.
Closer to 7.
For just the TDR program?
Yeah, there's no way
Yes.
you could do a $30,000 GIS for that, that's not possible.
So Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong,
But we
with
got prices
respect
on
to that, cause I know that, you know, the TDR committee was pushing hard for it, and I was admittedly pressuring you, on it, and you correct me if I'm wrong, the way you explained it to me is that the impact of creating sending and receiving areas requires that each and every area and all of the surrounding uses actually be studied.
Absolutely. And also, the TDR component also requires the economic evaluation of what the current value and projected value of TDRs is, what the ratio of, right now the ratios do not work. One TDR for $75,000 to $75,000, 1,500 square feet of commercial, nobody will ever use that. One TDR for one apartment unit, nobody's ever going to use a TDR for $75,000 for one apartment unit. So those have to be evaluated.
And
the
that's why
ratios-
the TDR committee gave us a 5-page report saying that we could change the zoning, saying that one TDR would be valued for 4,000 square feet instead of 1,500 square feet. And those are just the things, like, if we go back to the TDR report from 3 or 4 years ago, I think that all those recommendations that you see in the TDR report are probably gonna be incorporated into this $700,000 study.
But it never happened, right? So it's been talked about, it's been discussed, but it's never happening. This comprehensive plan allows it to go from discussion and theory to actual implementation with zoning changes. So I think that's the key, and the importance of this is to actually move it forward and implement it so that it can be a successful program moving forward. And I think that everybody's on board to go in that direction.
This is the community coming together to shape its future. I have no problem with that. I
That's a
think
good
it's
way to put it.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
it's a good way. It's a good-
Yeah, just to go back to us making this choice, certainly I had concerns about the cost. You know, when we looked at the 2 proposals. However, when, the people on the committee, we put it side by side and looked at what we were getting from each company, yes, the deliverables were a lot more, and they were things that we absolutely needed, that this company was providing. And as Jim said, the last update lasted 16 years, so this is important, and let's get it right. It does shape our future.
Well, yeah.
Agreed.
The last 10 years
And
have been
thank you
changed.
guys so much for negotiating.
Thank
I'm
you.
much more comfortable now that you negotiated us down here.
Thank you very much.
Don't let it go to your head either, Anne Marie.
It was Anne Marie and
I think
Dawn.
you thanked yourself and Dawn when you came in here.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's right, that's her power shoes.
Next is awards bid for charter coat.
No, just the fiscal impact bill on that needs to be updated. The fiscal impact on the, resolution number 15.
It does need to get updated, and I just want to give an explanation on that, is because we didn't know the final price, because the negotiation for the final price of this, I think, was just
Came out,
completed while
yeah.
we were in the
10
meeting
minutes ago.
here. So all of that'll be in there we can be in by the end of today or tomorrow morning.
I was stalling Joanne,
It's
That's right,
okay,
you
I'm
did
just
the right
saying the
thing.
fiscal impact statement needs to be updated.
Next is awards bid for charter coach transportation 2019-20 for the town of Riverhead. Next is authorizes town clerk to post and publish attached notice to bidders for street light and traffic signal maintenance repair parts.
Okay.
18 is authorizes town clerk to publish and post a notice of public hearing to consider a proposed local law for an amendment of chapter 217 entitled Buildings, Building Construction and Improvements and Housing Standards, Part 5 Housing Standards.
What is that for?
This is to be able to change the code or update the code, clarify it for the purpose and intent for overcrowded housing and violations that are on properties to exceed the penalties that are currently allowed and in place. Do you want to come up and address this?
sure.
This was, part of the frustration with meeting with code enforcement and everybody, to be able to go after these landlords that are allowing these houses to be either overcrowded or to fall into disrepair. But I will let you address it.
Sure, so, can I just borrow your copy
Sure.
really quick? So, what I wanna highlight to Councilwoman Giglio, because she actually mentioned it on the record earlier, I specifically put in a provision that, in addition, it is the intention of the town board, and the town board hereby adopts the Property Maintenance Code of the State of New York.
Perfect.
PMC NYS 19 NYCRR 1226. So, that's one provision. Another provision you will note is I recite to municipal home rule law. I do that because in order to increase the penalty provision over and above that which is set forth in the penal code, we have to do it by our home rule powers under municipal home rule law. That provision's in there. In addition, I made the intent very clear and very strong that it's about the health, safety, and welfare of not only the inhabitants of these structures, which tend to have faulty plumbing, electric, and overcrowding, but for the protection of all of the residents, because if there's a fire, the risk is it goes right down the neighborhood.
And that's a great point.
So the penalty provision for a first-time offense can be as much as $10,000.
And as low as 2,500.
Correct. And I think that our code enforcement and prosecutor can make that determination and recommendation based upon the egregiousness of the violation.
And where is that penalty in here?
That is under,
Section 43, is it?
so what I did was I provided the town board with the entire section so it's easier the first time you're reading it, because sometimes when you do a code amendment, I'm only amending certain sections of the code, so there's not a flow to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I like that.
I will, just bear with me, it's very long.
I think 89,
89.
failure to comply.
Yes, section
19,
89. You'll note that the entire section 21789 is brand new. Number one, we already had this chapter 217 in our code, and we already actually had the capability to actually enforce certain provisions regarding these egregious safety issues. This really amplifies it and provides a much harsher penalty. So in the penalty provision, number one, it states that if there's a failure to comply with the notice of violation that is set forth in 21798D, the house will be determined to be unfit for human habitation, and pursuant to that provision of the code that's cited, they could require an immediate notice to vacate. The next provision provides that an owner or occupant who commits or causes another to commit any act in violation of this part shall be deemed a violation punishable by a fine not less than $2,500 nor more than $10,000.
I think that should say per day.
Well, it
It
does,
says for not more
because-
than 15 days.
Well,
but
it does,
wow.
if you read the last sentence of that paragraph,
Mhm.
it says, except where a time for compliance may have been set forth in a notice of violation, each day's continued violation shall be deemed a separate additional violation. And then we also add in an additional provision that it could result in the revocation of a certificate of occupancy.
Give the days, right,
Great. Did you talk to Town of Southampton at all? Because I know that they had a lot of problems, so I thought that their code, the way it read, is very similar to what I'm just browsing through here with all these pages, but, so you did consult with them before
Yeah,
drafting this?
So I examined their code, I didn't speak to them, but I reviewed some of their case law related to their code. In addition, I spoke to the town of Huntington, and if you look at Huntington, this is actually more in line with Huntington rather than Southampton. I also spoke to the town of Brookhaven,
Mhm.
and they were great, and, you know, we had a great conversation back and forth, and did some brainstorming, and
I think it's a good
I
start.
also researched the law and have all the law if the town board requires it or requests it. And then the last thing I'll just add for the town board, under the New York State Property Maintenance Code that was referred to earlier and
Mhm.
that I just stated, it makes clear the required square footage per person for a bathroom, a kitchen, a bedroom.
Mhm.
And when you talk about an enforcement issue, it's really not all that complicated when I spoke to Brookhaven. Because you're looking, and we did this with Accessory Apartment Review Board, John Hubbard was on it, Linda Hulse. We wouldn't accept any plan by an engineer. We would actually really review it and do the calculations to see if they were actually accurate. But again, if you look at the property code and you look at the square footage provisions, it's not that difficult. If you know that 8 people are living in the house, you can look at the required number of square footage for the different areas and look at the total square footage of the house on the certificate of occupancy. It's an automatic red flag. It's where you should begin.
And then the challenge is to get in.
Correct.
That's one of the
Yeah.
challenges,
Correct.
is, you know, even if you have all of the
Rich
information,
Rock.
to be able to get into the building, or the justification if they're not allowing you
Right.
to get in.
So
This is-
reviewing this,
This is absolutely a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yes. I commend you and Laura for bringing this forward, and thanks for your work on this. I'm happy that we're going after these bad player landlords.
so on 21766, where it refers to plumbing,
Yes.
if you could just, under the sewage drainage system, under item number
Do you have?
1, if you could put, where it says plumbing fixtures shall be drained to a sewage drainage system, and such system shall be connected to a public sewer or to an adequate and approved system of sewage disposal. Can you just add on there, as per Suffolk County Department of Health Services, Article 6? Because if they have, if we say, okay, you have a single-family house and you have 4 bedrooms, then that's an adequate system for that. But if they go to 5, Article 6 says that they have to upgrade the sanitary system to a larger system. So if we just refer to Suffolk County Sanitary Code for the health
Isn't that
department,
redundant?
So, that, what you're reading is not what I drafted, it's what's
Understood,
existing in
but
the
that's what
code.
I'm
And
saying.
the only caveat I'd like to make, and to your credit, is that you secured Suffolk County Health Department's permission in certain situations for us to exceed their requirements. So I'm gonna have to like craft that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because in certain areas of the town, if the other members of the town board are not aware, Councilwoman Giglio did lobby successfully, and Suffolk County Health Department agreed in writing that the town could adopt stricter standards, and they would enforce those. So, I'll just have to,
yeah,
Look
so
at
just
Like
under
Right.
sewage drainage system, I just want everybody
Right.
being, because the county is getting ready to change that again. I attended
know.
something at the county center where they're talking about these alternative waste systems and the subshed areas. So I just wanna cover ourselves for the future, that we're always in line in our code with the Suffolk County Sanitary Code.
okay.
I guess but ours exceeds Suffolk County sanitary in some areas, so if we
In
just.
some areas, but
Right.
in
just-
general.
Just include that
As
in
to
here,
this
so.
one.
Yes.
Okay.
Under one. So, just in case their laws change, because we did that also with the Suffolk County Health Department when we changed it a few years ago, but that was
Right.
just for areas that were, under review by the Conservation Advisory Council or in the watershed areas. But now the county's talking about adding subshed areas, so if they should do that, I just want our code to be consistent with the Suffolk County Sanitary Code.
So will you be able to change that, or having a change to this for?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll send that around once that gets changed
Right, and-
to include.
And the town board's not gonna see this lengthy document. You're only gonna see
But, I mean,
the amendments.
It's good, it's good, I think it's a little redundant, but I think it's good to have it in there. I think it's gonna happen, it'd be triggered through site plan anyway, and triggered through building department anyway, but that's all.
Very good, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Next is adopts a local law amending chapter 301 entitled zoning and land development of the Riverhead Town Code, Article 56, site plan review.
The only change that we need to make with this, I just reviewed it this morning, we just need to put a secret recitation in the resolution.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'll make that change.
Thanks, Jeff.
Ooh, it's not advancing anymore, let's get towards the end.
Next is authorizes town clerk to publish and post a notice for public hearing regarding US HUD Community Development Block Grant CDBG 2020 funds. Next is authorizes the town board to specifically, and this will be changed to amend the requirements of Town Code 301-326C1 for the site plan application of Stop and Shop attenuation fence and fuel cell 1615 Old Country Road, Riverhead, Suffolk County Tax Map 119-1-19.1.
I know, but that,
There's a typo in the title where it says Riverhead, so.
what's the fuel cell?
Jeff, Jeff, what is the fuel cell on this one? This
Stop
is
and Shop?
Stop and Shop. You wanna just come up?
Yeah, they, on the west
Like, don't even leave,
Yeah.
just stay here.
On the east side of the building, they're, happen to come in concurrently with the sound wall, they're putting a fuel cell on the east side of the building. So that's part of the application together, you can't
Okay.
segment it out.
Do
And they're
they have
putting,
do they have the gas to that, or they have gas from the building?
no, it comes, it's natural gas.
That's what I'm saying, but they have the natural gas there already? Okay.
So it says Revere Head, so just change that.
Oh, okay.
1615 Old Country Road, Revere Head.
All right,
Come
well,
on,
Okay.
gotta get our town right.
I'll have to speak to my staff.
all right, stay here. Assumes lead agency adopts a local law to amend chapter 225, environmental quality review of the Riverhead Town Code regarding the secret designation of developments that require less than 50 parking spaces. We spoke about that?
We had a public hearing.
Thank you.
Next is classifies proposed code amendment to chapter 301, zoning and land development for automobile storage in industrial A zoning, use district as a type 1 action pursuant to secret and requests lead agency.
So this went back to code revision and code revision just said do it in industrial A only?
Yeah, and we did hear from people in the community. Calverton Civic reached out to us, and they had some big concerns about changing it. And this is, you know, we worked on this for over a year, and I think this is what the committee overall believes is best for the town. Jeff, do you wanna weigh in?
Yeah, but that's,
Pretty much
that sums it up.
right?
Okay, next is classifies the site plan application of 307 East Main Street, East Main Street, Shady's Jamaican Restaurant facade renovation as a type 1 action pursuant to SECRA, and authorizes the planning department to circulate a request for the town board of the town of Riverhead to assume lead agency status for proposes of SECRA review 307 East Main Street, Riverhead, New York, Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-129-4-2. All right. I think that's it for you, Jeff.
Yep.
You can escape.
Let's see, 25 is, authorizes the removal of fixed assets. 26,
Same thing.
yep, is it the same? No, two different ones.
Two different
The next one is authorizes the removal of fixed assets. 27 is ratifies acceptance of a donation from Riverhead Home Depot. And the next one is also ratifies acceptance of donation of plants from Gabrielson Farms. These are both donations that were made to the town for the train station cleanup, so I thank both Home Depot and Gabrielson's. That's a couple of announcements, which I have announcements here
I just
somewhere.
have one thing before
Yeah.
before I shut off this computer and throw it away. Back to this automobile storage, we had a lengthy discussion last week,
Right.
and went back and forth.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know what transpired or who coordinated or what kind of discussions we had since that discussion we had, but we were talking about how we thought industrial C was probably less intense, and probably more applicable to that type of really benign use than industrial A, and that's been discarded through what process? That
Well, I think the committee felt that,
Committee, what committee?
the code revision committee felt that industrial C was a broader, you know, much broader, and this would be more limiting, and also, you know, we did hear from residents from that community,
Oh,
there was-
not my backyard type thing.
well, I think people have a right to advocate for themselves.
Yeah, but, storage of.
And I think
That's
the
gonna be
car deal,
screened.
I
I think
think
it's less
everyone
intense.
was content with this, the car dealership, we had worked this out, we had spent a
Alright.
long time on this.
All right,
The car dealership people met with us, I don't know,
I just
3 or 4
wanted
times.
to know what process happened and
That's
who
what
made
happened.
these decisions,
Right.
say to hell with what the discussion
We
was,
brought
we're
it
going
back,
with this.
we brought it back to the committee and we discussed it at
All right.
length,
Well,
and
I
we,
hope it passes, that's all I know.
and all of us agreed.
Okay.
And then also about structures such as guard booths and things of that nature, is that in there? Or you decided that no structures should be in there?
Well, there was a concern, and that was another thing
I
that.
mean, I have no problem with
that
it
we
in
got
A, I
comments
just think
from.
it's a
People
waste
were
of land, that's
concerned
all.
that if you put structures, that eventually that it ends up being like a car dealership out there.
We have such limited A, that, and A is, as this town develops, I think over the next decade or two, the A is gonna become more and more valuable,
Well,
Me
then they'll,
too.
then
and
they'll,
more and more needed.
then
Me
they'll sell
too.
their property and
Right.
ask for C.
No,
Well,
but
Ford,
that's,
Well, that's exactly
actually,
right.
if
Jim,
you
I
look
agree
at
with you.
Ford, they put in a huge area of cars,
You're
where they're storing cars.
you're
all
forcing
the
them to
way
put in
from
industrial A, and you're taking industrial A,
Ford is
which
doing
could be
Oh,
for
I know.
manufacturing
It's
all
down
the
there
time.
every day.
Right, exporting
4
it.
or 5 times a day.
So, we're trying to work with everybody.
And I think the car dealerships did express interest that they wanted to be closer to the dealerships. That was a
They
factor
did.
in where it is located, because to have it too far from the dealerships when they have to transfer
Well,
cars
C
back.
is closer than A.
Yeah,
No,
it
C-
is.
No, A is closer than C, because C is down in Pulaski Street, where we had said, no, what?
Jeff, come back to the
So,
table.
C is farther west from the car
Oh,
dealerships,
is it?
yeah.
Well,
It's not.
Yeah.
C is all up and down Edwards Avenue, which is closer, cause industrial A
No, no,
starts at
I
Edwards
get it.
Avenue and
It
goes
doesn't matter.
west.
I'm thinking as far as, the only reason I look at it, and I don't have a dog in the fight one way or the other, because I'm not gonna buy any car soon, but is,
C is just less intense,
Yeah,
and it's really a benign use, as
But
long as
there-
it's screened properly and no,
But it's a much bigger
But-
area, and I'll go back to my very original thing, is that I don't wanna be in Riverhead and see a sea of cars.
then you won't.
But I'm gonna say,
you would-
the reason for the change in the code was to, you know, assist the businesses that are the car dealerships, and what they had expressed, unless they've changed, which was to be closer to the car dealerships, which was A.
Well, I
So
don't think
that
it was,
was-
for me,
that
it
was-
wasn't either
that was
or.
where
I
the-
wasn't gonna say,
yeah.
look, you gotta be in C or you gotta be, I was saying make it available in any event, it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Right, and it, like we did
I
with
wouldn't
this,
exclude it from C.
right,
That's what
like
I'm
we
saying.
did with the solar code, it was gonna be by special permit, so
That's
people could
all.
come in and weigh in on the public hearing for the
It is.
special permit
Well,
in
it
industrial.
doesn't negate it being added to C, but at least we give them some relief,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the
But you're
in the
making
here
it
and now.
exclusive to A, and I don't know why you would do that.
Well,
But I
we
think
had,
it's
we worked with them a long time and met with them, and we had reached consensus,
No, I
and then
know
I
that
think
guy- my
Councilwoman
phone rings up
Giglio
there.
brought it up again, but we had met with them and worked it out, and they were content,
Oh,
so.
I talked to
yeah.
Tony Stroll.
I spoke to
talked
him too.
these people.
They
I know
wanted it
my
in C
friends, I've
also.
known them my whole life. I talked to these people too.
They wanted it in C also, and they wanted to be able to have a guard booth there, and it's, by the site plan, you could restrict that they can't have a car dealership in the future unless the zoning should change to allow for car dealerships on those properties in industrial A. But,
Well, that's not
I-
what they had said to us, and in the end, what we need to do is you know,
It's a good
come up with
start.
something
But
that works for
that's-
everybody.
that's-
It's a good
that's
start.
what I
I
think.
think it's not well
Yep.
thought out, but it's a good start.
I
I
think
don't think
we're,
it's
I
well
think
thought
we're in
out either.
agreement that we at least all agree on A, whether we all agree on
I don't
C or
agree on
not,
A.
but if we can agree on A, so you don't want any in A?
no, I don't agree with, saying it can only go in
I
A if it
underst-
can't be in C, because I don't agree in taking all that manufacturing and industrial property that has a lot more uses being used for car storage, when I think that it could just as easily go in industrial C with the proper buffering.
So,
And I think that by saying it's only gonna go in A, you're forcing these car dealerships to go out and buy property in A that I think could be used for job creation and for tax base.
but I think that's up to the car dealerships. I think if I understood what you just said, you're okay with A and C, and since we're all in agreement with A, at least let's get that passed through so they have some
Agreed.
relief if they choose to do that.
No, I think
That
A and
works.
C is what it should be, so I'm not gonna support just A, because I think you're limiting them.
Okay. I just a couple of,
Well, you
Jody,
need
are
to
you
go-
leaving out?
you
We
need to
haven't
talk to
closed the meeting
Calverton
yet,
Civil,
so.
by the way.
No, we're not,
Went
we,
to exec.
Well, they
no.
don't rule the rules, sorry.
So just a couple of announcements. On the 28th is the last reflections at 8 o'clock, well, when it gets dark out over in Grangeville Park. They also are seeking still some volunteers from there. I do not have my announcements thing. But from 4 to 6 over at Grangeville Park, so if they need somebody at Grangeville Park just to come over, just show up. Okay. Also, we have the train station cleanup on the 28th, Saturday, at 8:30 over at the train station. Anybody who wants to help, please, just come, and we will give you some work to do, planting some flowers, and to continue the train station cleanup there.
And the litter pickup, Jim
Is
and I have been
the
working on,
19th.
is the 19th, have to be here at 9 o'clock, correct?
Well, we step off and
Yep.
be here at 8, so you can have some snacks. I'll have some donuts and stuff.
In the country fair,
Country Fair's the 13th of October. All our dignitaries will be there, it'll be a great time.
All right, can I get a first and second to go into executive session? The first is personnel, matters surrounding hiring in the engineer department. Second is matters regarding an employment on medical leave. Contractual is changes to a contract, and selection of outside counsel for litigation. The next is litigation, current litigation in the matter of Oak Hills versus Woodson, and Town of Riverhead et al. Versus the County of Suffolk. So can I have a first and second to go into exec?
Yep.
Okay.
All in
So
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
All righty then, we have